today I'd like to share with you my thoughts on the nature of humanity. Now, I've recently realized some things about humanity that I did not realize even a week ago. I've been listening to the book Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, a book about the terrible potential of man and losing oneself and one's primal nature, and the relationship between the conquered and the conquerors. That's my own description of it. It has inspired characters like Voss from Far Cry 3, though it's not stated in the game, and you don't even know you're becoming Voss as the game progresses. But if you compare it with the Heart of Darkness, you start to realize that Voss is the character that you have the choice of becoming. And you're going through the same process of losing yourself that Voss did and Kurtz did in Heart of Darkness. Now, in the movie Apocalypse Now, which is very famous at this point, the name Kurtz is also used, but it's used for the colonel. This is during the Vietnam War, and this colonel went vigilante, decided to start fighting the war in his own way, a dirty war, using all the tactics, terrible tactics, that even the U.S. military at that time wouldn't use, which was very terrible things that the United States military did in Vietnam. But he was using tactics even worse, wiping out entire villages of people on a mass scale, willing to mutilate and carve away flesh from people, making the enemy afraid. But without going too far into Apocalypse Now, let's go back to Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's basically a man that's sent by a company to go talk to Kurtz, which is the manager of an outpost in Africa during the time when ivory trade was at its height. And as he goes down the river in Africa, I'm not exactly sure where in Africa, you see his judgments of the black people who are there, and his supposed understanding of their relationship to European people, though it's very racist. It's written a long time ago, but it very well shows how an imperialistic person views themselves as better than a so-called tribal African person. And just for that, it'd be worth listening to, but it goes even further into a complete unraveling of being a gentleman, social virtues, and what it means to be human. As he goes further and further down the river, it seems like he's going further and further into hell itself. And I haven't gotten to the point where he meets Kurtz, the manager of this outpost, assistant manager of the company, or something like that. I could be wrong, but he is the runner of that outpost that he's trying to get to. He keeps on hearing tales of Kurtz. He keeps on hearing how great he is from the imperialist English and French, and he sees many sights of how terrible the black natives are treated in Africa, how they're just seen as lesser than human, animalistic, and the author, or rather the speaker that's speaking to us in Heart of Darkness, has his racisms, and it is made plain. But I wanted to make a video about my views before he met Kurtz, which is his build-up. And it made me think about some things in reference to my own understanding of humanity and what we can do at our worst. Now, in reference to cannibalism and extreme hunger in Heart of Darkness, one quote stuck out to me. Where there is hunger, disgust does not exist. Basically referring to cannibalism in the sense that if you're hungry enough, you'll eat another person. And being disgusted with it is tossed out the window when it comes to survival, when it comes to primal urges to fill your stomach when you just need sustenance, and how your civilized nature and your virtues are unwound as those primal needs go unfulfilled. And it made me think that perhaps this is also true of other hungers. Perhaps this is true for things like greed, for more and more in relation to materialism. Perhaps this is also applicable to lust and where the hunger is fed again and again for stranger and stranger things. It just keeps on growing and growing and growing. And unless you starve out certain hungers that you don't need to essentially survive, like literally survive, like having sex. You don't absolutely need that. But if you don't starve out some certain strange fetishes that you have in you, and this is not everybody, but some people, then and you just feed those, it'll just keep growing and growing and growing. Just like greed, though, just like greed in life. If you constantly justify to yourself, okay, I can backstab this person in the business world, but it's just this one time, or this is the grander game. Some people lose, some people win. If you keep on feeding that greed, then you'll just keep on getting more and more greedy and doing more and more terrible things in the business world. Perhaps even exporting jobs to another country where child labor and torture of the laborers is permitted in order to make your products get back for you a greater profit. But it also made me think of something as far as, what state, what product of a person or a society is indicative of the better part of human nature. Now, this is a quote that I came up with. Where there is mercy, there lies the potential of man, the potential to be a man, to be a human being, and being a human being in reference to not being an animal. Where there is none, no mercy, only animals remain. So when we compare ourselves to animals, something primal that we view ourselves as being above, it is only with mercy and in a society or a person where mercy exists, then the animal nature is not completely in control. And that will remain true across the board, I've found, as I've thought about this. Now, I'd like to bring up something that I actually didn't write down, and it's just a brief side note. My understanding of the right and left-hand paths in magic, for instance. Another across-the-board statement that is true is the difference between right-hand magic and left-hand magic, or right-hand spirituality and left-hand, I guess you could say as well, is that right-hand, ones that are truly right-hand believe that freedom is power, whereas in the left-hand path, power is freedom. They may seem interchangeable, but they're not, the more you think on it. But moving on, in my efforts to share things with you, and I'm talking about my channel in general, my efforts are not to affirm myself upon you, but an attempt to spark your own true self's affirmation. I attempt to show you everything that I think that I know on this channel, on my YouTube channel, in an effort to not, have a certain power over you, or to satisfy my hunger of egotism, but to try and show you that there's a better part of yourself that you can choose. And a lot of people think that deep down, us human beings are really dark and evil, but it is only on the surface that we try to take part in these niceties, and it is only with the social contract of I give up these rights to get this protection or this freedom for that material stability or life within society. A lot of people think that only with the social contract are we as animals held into place and decide not to break laws, but this is just the surface idea of what a human is, that we need fear to be invoked in us, or compromise to be invoked in us in order to be good people. But I think that falls way too much in line with the idea that human beings are animals. I think that when we work past that, when we truly start to understand our motives, a person who truly looks at themselves, goes past that darkness within, carries that torch further and further within himself. And a sketch drawn by Kurtz in the book Heart of Darkness was a figure like Lady Liberty holding a torch but blindfolded in the darkness. I think that a lot of our virtues are that torch, but we don't really see them. We only see them as having to keep to them in order to exist in society. But when we take off the blindfold and look at ourselves in the mirror for who we truly are deep down and accept that these are our flaws and these are the good things about ourselves, and we ultimately want we want to live with people. We don't want to live in spite of them. I think that the further we go into that darkness, we eventually reach a point where we find a light within. You know, the labyrinth of myself is no longer a complete mystery to me. And this wasn't a recent realization, but for so long, I hated myself for many years. And, you know, in the past year, I've started to actually love myself, who I am. And though I have all these flaws, I drink too much, I smoke cigarettes, or, you know, I can get greedy, or maybe I don't try to be sensitive towards other people as much as I should. Despite all that, deep down, I found a light within myself. And I found that ultimately my motives are good. The person that I am is good. And the only thing that kept me from loving myself was the fact that I can't find a loving relationship with a woman. And now I've had many relationships, but not one that really struck this note. And I think that recently I started to realize that, you know what, it isn't my fault. It isn't really anybody's fault. The circumstances that I am in, as this person, Hunter Salazar, are what I have happened into, and I don't understand all the dynamics, but it doesn't mean that I'm unlovable. And I think that if you realize that about yourself, you'll start to love yourself more. And in this past year, I've really developed the ability to love myself, which is wonderful, because before I knew that I couldn't, and now I'm starting to realize that I can and I do. And it took a lot of progress, but I'm reaching that point, and I'm at that point actually. So I can only start loving myself more and more. And you know, loving yourself has nothing to do with ego. Ego tries to make yourself feel like you're better than other people. Loving yourself has nothing to do with superiority over others. Now, it can be summed up, my points, as far as me loving myself in a single sentence. Now I feel the darkness as something that exists in me only before I turn the corner in the hallway of my being and see the vibrant light not far off. And that light is within you as well. There is a primal pull towards certain desires, towards certain satisfactions, towards even fear itself. There's this primal pull. And it becomes very intimate. You become intimate with the immediate environment around you. And, you know, not knowing what's a few feet away, this is all symbolic, not really sure what will happen just around the next bend. And becoming like an animal to where you respond, you're completely responsive to your environment, you're completely intimate with it, to where your world is so small, and it's from one second to the next, and it's clinging to the things that make you feel good, and trying to get those things. That becomes your world. And you can't really imagine trying to not get those things. You become animalistic. And so many people are. I mean, they won't be grunting around like animals, but when you start to really talk to them, some people seem very animalistic. They're just thinking a few days ahead, and they're just clinging to certain things that make them feel good in an effort to stay above, really looking at themselves instead of delving deep within. And then once they delve deep within, they might find darkness, and they might see, oh, I'm an animal, everybody's an animal, and be satisfied with that and become an animal. But if you go further and further within, you go further and further past this primal darkness, and don't be content with it. Don't accept it as who you are, and you keep on moving past it. You'll find light within yourself. And I think we all need to find that within ourselves. Move past the darkness. Move past your immediate environment and seek that peak upon the highest mountain that we can see, no matter how deep the swamp in the valley goes. Even if we descend so deep we can't see the peak, we can remember it. We can feel that it's there even if we can't see it. Find that light within yourselves, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a great day.